across the country and around the world from wherever you tune in. Welcome to this special interview, your leading current affairs program that comes your way every Friday on this hour, live on Majak Radio 92.2 FM here in Bakau, Newtown. I am your host, Mudlamin Sane. In today's edition of this special interview, we bring you a very important and timely discussion that affects our families, our youth, and the future of our nation. Drug peddling and drug-related crimes continues to pose serious threats to public health, safety, and national development. In response to the government of the Gambia, through the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, is stepping up efforts to combat these menaces. Today, we are privileged to have in this studio a man at the center of the national fight, Mr. Demba Cisse, the Director of Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia, a man whose educational career began at Bansang Primary School, Amity Senior Secondary School, then to the Gambia College, HTC as an English major and geography minor. He proceeded to St. Mary's University at Canada, University of College of Education in Winnipeg, Ghana, City of College Birmingham, UK, University of Reading, UK. He holds He holds a master's degree in the organization, planning, and management in education. That is why he rose from the position of a lecturer to a registrar at the Gambia College before he became the Director of Administration at the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, now the Director General himself of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Good morning, sir. You're welcome to this special interview.
Good morning. Thank you for welcoming me here at Majak Radio.
It's always a pleasure. Yes, to begin with, Mr. Cisse, for the benefit of our listeners, could you briefly tell us about your role as Director General and the core mandate of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia?
Thank you. Once again, good morning. Yes, as you rightly mentioned, I'm the Director General of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency. I'm about 16 months old in the job. I was appointed sometime in June 2024 by His Excellency the President, for which I'm very grateful to him and to the Gambian people to lead such an agency. My role as Director General is to spearhead the affairs of the agency by way of directing policy, managing staff, and working with staff to fulfill the core mandate of the agency, which constitutes the second part of your question, which is the mandate of the agency. The mandate of the agency, as indicated in the Drug Control Act 2003, is to regulate the use, abuse, and trafficking of illicit drugs in this country, and of course fight international crime related to drug trafficking. So our mandate is actually to, as the usual word, to fight against drugs as much as possible by way of having a two-pronged approach to it, which is one is supply suppression, in which we work with communities to help them with regards to drug trafficking in their regions, and of course to interdict people who for one reason or the other do not comply with the dictates of Drug Control Act, as much as possible to bring people to justice who flout the rules regarding drug. And the other aspect is the issue of demand reduction, where we work with people, communities, youth organizations to reduce the demand for drug, and that goes with public education and sensitization.
Quite significant, like you mentioned, still on the mandate. Let's talk about this, because we want to know how does the mandate that, linking it to the Act 2003 have helped you in combating the menace of or the trend of drug crimes in the Gambia?
Yeah, the mandate is clear. The mandate states that you cannot use or traffic certain substances that we call illicit drugs, and it's specified if you do what comes with it.
Yeah.
For example, drugs, illicit drugs like cannabis, cocaine, heroin. It's all kind will have what we call the schedules. It lists all the drug types that one cannot use. Illicit drugs. It also lists all the controlled drugs. There are some drugs that for medicinal values that you can use, but only upon prescription. So the drug types are listed in the Drug Control Act, what we call the schedules. There are different schedules depending on what drugs we are talking about, and it's specified. And that when you in court mess with them, you are liable to answer questions to that. So that's what we call the supply suppression part. Like if you are caught with what they call a joint of cannabis, or a kilo of cannabis, or a container of cocaine, or a farm of cannabis, or all types. We are mandated to call to your attention by arresting you and working with you through a process of litigation up to, for example, incarceration, or up to the time the courts deem that you are not liable for such an offense. That's what we call enforcing the mandate of the agency. The mandate also, what most Gambians also don't understand, is the mandate also, because people think that we are only there to arrest and incarcerate. Yeah. That has been, perhaps for one reason or the other, the core emphasis in the past, not only us, all over the world. But there's a shift now in paradigm as far as that's concerned towards prevention and support for victims of drugs. And that's a core mandate that most Gambians are perhaps not aware of, and that's what we want to amplify as much as possible, where we are there also not only to arrest and incarcerate, particularly young people, first-time offenders, but we are also there to educate and sensitize people. And where people have already fallen victim to drugs, it's also our responsibility to support them to bring back their lives so that they can be something for themselves and for their families.
Quite important, significant. We have seen all the efforts that you've made mention, ranging from the outreach programs by your PR department, publishing every activity, including the recent breakthrough in Central River region.
Yes.
North, that's the plantation. But then a growing concern is going around among young people, the spread of drugs, especially among young people. Now, how would you describe the situation in the Gambia today?
Yes, it's a concern for us, but it's also under control. It's a bold way. We are concerned that many youths are getting to drugs, but that's not peculiar to the Gambia. It's a world phenomenon. If you look at the UNODC annual reports every year, they will tell you a considerable percentage of people are going into drugs. And you have to look at the demography also in the Gambia and in the sub-region. If you look at the youth bracket, it's very high. When I say youth between 18 and 35 years, every census will show you that bracket is increasing. And that's the bracket that is usually very active, very curious, want to explore many things, including drugs, unfortunately. So we are concerned that many people will want to test drugs and eventually get hooked up in it. But we can also say authoritatively that in the Gambia here, we are doing, not to tap myself on the back, but we are doing extremely well to contain that by the massive expansion of our programs, both in the field and within communities.
Now, Director, when you say drug, people will not understand. Some people will think it's only cannabis supply bar. But the imagine of new drugs like ecstasy, and other drugs. Tell us what is the most common in the Gambia. People might think it's only cannabis supply.
Yes, undoubtedly cannabis still constitutes the most common drugs in West Africa, even in the Gambia. Yes, that's true, and that's what most people know. But we do know, and we want to send this message very strong. Cannabis is not the only drug that is affecting our youth. There are a whole lot of drugs that permeates the illicit market that affect, including cocaine, for example, including crack, for example. Cocaine, you can argue, is very expensive. It's not very affordable for most people, and West Africa being a transit route, you cannot argue there may not be residue floating in our markets. Crack is relatively cheaper than cocaine is in our illicit market. You just mentioned ecstasy. 3 years ago, ecstasy wasn't a big deal in the Gambia. If you look at our seizure statistics, 2022, we, as an agency, we seized less than 12,000 pills of ecstasy. In 2023, we seized about 38,000 pills of ecstasy. In 2024, we seized over 150,000 pills of ecstasy. And this year, we are already at 617,000 pills of ecstasy, and we are not at the end of the year. So you can see the wave is increasing almost exponentially. So it's problematic, and then there are other classes of new substances like coups. We'll talk about coups later if it is in your questions, and I will tell you what is happening around coups. We have molly, we have vape, we have all sort of drugs. Clandestine labs in the sub-region sending waves of new drugs into the illicit market. So it's a problem, but we are addressing them.
So that seems to be worrying if you look at the trend of ecstasy itself from 2022 to 2025.
Yes.
In fact, one of the breakthrough again at the airport, a massive amount of it was captured. In fact, your personnel detected it from the airport.
Exactly.
That seems to be worrying.
Yes, it's worrying. Ecstasy is becoming a big issue for the sub-region. It's not only a Gambian phenomenon. I'm just from a conference in Ghana 2 weeks ago, precisely on the 27th of last month, in which other countries reported even a more worrying scenario than us. But so when they bring their statistics, I have to cover mine, because what they have is million times perhaps bigger than us. Some have even a container of ecstasy. So it's a problem in the sub-region. We don't know, it's a party drug, people call it. Gambia is not yet a big market. Most of the ecstasy we catch here are in transit, perhaps to Senegal or Mali, where they have a bigger market where it also costs more. But then it's a worrying trend. I cannot downplay that. We think we are also addressing it. We are working with partners, both in the country with other services who support us in our operations, and of course in the sub-region with the Judicial Police of Guinea-Bissau, with Operative of Senegal, with other sister law enforcement, drug law enforcement entities in the sub-region. But the ecstasies mostly come from Europe, and we are also working with our partners. Most of the ecstasy we catch so far here are between Netherlands and Brussels, and also a few from the Indian subcontinent. So we know the origin, not precisely, but we are having some clue about some of the origin, and we are working with partners in those places of origin.
Now, with this trend, do you believe that it has a role, drug has a role that is fueling with regards to theft, crimes related, activities like theft, violence, and also organized crimes?
Yes, it does. First, I'll start with the last one. Organized crime first before I come. Yes, organized crime is related. There's a big nexus between organized crime and drugs, because when people traffic large amounts of drugs, they have to pay their way through and to looking for complexity within law enforcement, looking for complexity within communities who they can use, and that has a potential to fuel crime. Coming down to crime and drugs, there's also a strong correlation between drugs and crime. Sometimes we get reports in communities, they say, oh, come around here, something is happening. I don't want to mention any place out of respect, but they will call us. Come to our place, there's a lot of disturbance, a lot of noise happen there. So if you go to those places, sometimes you find the people making those noise, the people making that acts of vandalism. Not all. Quite a few of them are doing it because they've used drugs. So we cannot say we cannot link them. They are linked, crime and drugs. That's why wherever there is a lot of petty crime, a lot of burglary and crime related to violence, we are not saying authoritative is caused by drugs. We are going potentially drug could fuel some of them. That's why we work with the police a lot on those kind of things. We have joint operations where they're looking for crime, we're looking for drug, and we eventually find out that what they are looking for is related to what we are looking for. So we work in unison to make sure we address it together.
We were going to actions, but
go ahead.
Because already you've answered the first question. But then let's go straight to the recent major success by your operatives. recently the year is ending. Which
Yes.
one can you reflect on?
We've made some major interdiction this year at the airport. We've made some interdiction with ecstasy coming from Europe in suitcases, and sometimes we speak to our partners in Europe and we ask pertinent questions. How these things could be loaded in a plane from Europe with all the sophistication of their screening system. And how are we able to detect it? Sometimes with only physical observation, with our limited resources at the airport. So, but because of the strong coordination at the airport and at the borders, not only DLEAG, I don't want to assume that it's DLEAG who's making all the success stories. We work with other services, the police, the SIS, the immigration. We work together in some of the key positions, key areas around the country, particularly the airport, the seaport, and some key borders like Amdala and Jiboro. So we've made some major seizures. And then in August, we made a large seizure of over 400,000 pills of ecstasy that came through the ports. That were cleared at our own ports here. We are not seeing deliberate complexity, but we are seeing some little weak links that these people see within our infrastructure, and they are using those weak links. So we are beefing up. Then we also have large seizures of cannabis in backyards of people where they plant them. Then we also have plantations that we recently in Same Pochonki, for example, we had a large seizure of cannabis farms. We've been told the farm existed a couple of years ago, but we cannot force it. We don't want to blame the past, but we are able to bust it, and it was the biggest of its kind in many years. So we have made major seizures, but major success stories. But not only that's on the interdiction side. On the engagement side, we have expanded our drug demand reduction and media and advocacy operations, activities rather. Sorry, where we've engaged schools. We created drug-free clubs across the country. We've been meeting them. We've been meeting youth organizations. Some of the programs we do, like the World Drug Day and other, we've made sure that we give them a bigger picture than before, with a view to expand and make our presence felt, both in interdiction and in public engagement. All those things have paid dividends.
One key thing that very eye-catching for me that is about the school engagement part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, going to that level, the grassroots level, to ensure that people understand the implications, about drugs and whatever. That is very significant.
It is because the youths, they are the inheritors of this country. They will eventually take over. We will eventually leave. That's normal. So they need to be prepared. We need to help them. The issue of youths getting into drugs, sometimes we want to change even the thinking. The people who use drugs, we stop seeing them as perpetrators, but see them as victims. Before they fall victims, we say catch them before they catch drugs. So that's we want to catch their attention first before they become enticed. So if you catch them before they catch drugs, it helps. You cannot catch everybody, but if you send the message strong and capture many people, chances are that some will listen and some will heed and some will not go near drugs.
That is important, the collaboration aspect of it with sister forces. But we didn't head straight to about policy, because it's very significant to have policies in play. What new policy reform or legal framework has been introduced recently, if not by DLEAG, to ensure effectiveness?
Yeah, one is let's start with the cooperation, then we come to the policy. The issue of cooperation is key to DLEAG. If you look at law enforcement, we are the youngest in the country. The other services have been here. They are, to use a hyperbole, they have been here as old as the mountains. But we are young, we are about 25 years old. So we have a lot to learn from the police, a lot to learn from SIS, a lot to learn from immigration. And they have been giving their best. They have availed their resources to us during joint operations, and we are able to make a lot of headway, not because of us, but because they have been supportive. So that is one. The issue of reforms and legal frameworks. We look at, all what we do is we derive it from the Drug Control Act 2003. We have looked at the act even before I came in. They were looking at the act, how to inject new things into the act, to the effect that we have made some amendments that we call the Drug Control Act 2025 amendment. We have amended part of the act and we have submitted to our parent ministry, Minister of Interior, for onward submission to the Minister of Justice and then to the National Assembly, and then if If the amendments go through, there are key issues we flag there that we need to do. For example, we amplify the need for example, for community service for first-time offenders, or community service for offenders with small quantities of common drugs. For example, cannabis is a common drug.
Yeah.
So that when our men and women catch you with a small quantity of cannabis, for example, instead of the magistrate under the current dispensation, the magistrate has no discretion, is to fine you or send you to jail. Even however small. Once we can weigh it and analyze it, it's enough to send you to mile 2 or Joshua. In the amendment, we said because of he's a first-time offender, because he's just 19, 20, because the small quantity is very small and it's not cocaine, it's cannabis. Can we send this young man to community service in area council, become area council for 8 months, for example? That's what we call community service for first-time offenders, or community service for people in possession of small quantities of common drugs. So let's not mistake it for cocaine. We are talking about cannabis. We also talk about support for victims and people who are arrested with drugs, people who are hooked into drugs. We are also having a rehab center. Where these people could be rehabilitated. We can work with them and their families to rebuild their lives, because they are victims. They need support. They don't need stigmatization. You cannot stereotype against them. You have to bring them forward, work with them, and so they can send them back to school, or send them back to apprenticeship, or send them back to learn a trade. That way, when they start seeing something, when they believe in themselves, they can stay away from drugs. So these are all captured in our amendment bill. And the issue of even a uniform branch, if you think of a uniform branch, or even an arm wing, these are all part of the new legislation we injected into the amendment. Hopefully, if it goes through, you'll see a lot of changes in our modus operandi.
So now, this policy is quite significant to boost whatever you're doing at the agency. But then let's link that to human rights. The balancing strict law enforcement and human rights is a due process. The fight against drug cannot be won alone. What role does the community have to play? Parents, including religious leaders, schools, to prevent drug?
Okay, 2 questions there. Human rights and role of communities. Human rights first. The issue of human rights is paramount to every law enforcement. If you look at the security sector reforms that is going on, not only with DLEAG, with the police, with immigration, army, everybody is concerned that the rights of people must be respected. And our men and women cannot operate with outside that. Everybody has to operate within the ambit of law. We made our men and women officers know that the people they are serving, they cannot brutalize them, for example. They have to work with them. If people commit crime, there's a procedure you do. They have to follow due process, that procedure, so that these people don't cry foul of being intimidated or being forced into things that they have not done. So we are trying to making also our men aware that they will be rewarded for good work, but there's accountability as well for excesses when you do go beyond what you are supposed to do. Law enforcement doesn't give you the prerogative to do what you are not supposed to do outside the law. So our men are in tune with that, and we are trying to mold ourselves towards that. Coming to the communities, yes, we are working with. We know we can operate alone. We are serving these communities. That's why we work with them. During my recent tour of the country, I met all cadres of community. I met from the governor to the area council to the alcalos to the chief to the VDC, village development committees, and our men also and women do that the same. They work with them in community sensitization. They encourage them to come forward and speak to them about what's happening in their neighborhood, with a view to throw the fight to them, so that we all have to do it together, not only the league. And that's what the police is doing. For example, if you look at the police, I'm not speaking for them, but if you look at the successful nature of their community policing, it's based on the fact that they included everybody. So that's what we are also learning from and improving on.
Quite significant, Director. Let's proceed and say, okay, how can the public support DLEAG in this work, especially when it comes to reporting drug-related
that one is a little of a challenge. It's coming up. Many years ago, yes, the public, they used to distance themselves, but now, by and large, they are coming up. They are, because of the impressive work of our Director of Drug Demand Reduction, Media and Advocacy. We've been able to incorporate them in our programs. We've been able to convince them that this is not a DLEAG fight. This is a community fight. Because when things get worse, it's the community that suffer. So we are encouraging them. that's why many a time now it's happening. People will report drug-related matters to us. They report to our commands in their region. They report to our head office. Sorry, in our region. So when we go, is it good? Yeah. Sorry. They report these things. They report to us. They call us, and when we go. But the reverse also is true. There are some communities that have. That try, but they cannot, but they try to make that area a no-go area. They try to intimidate our staff. But beyond that, they even attack our staff in the course of execution of their duties. Yeah. We have many cases in which our officers are under siege in some areas where they go to a particular compound, particular neighborhood. Everybody comes out. You are not taking Lamin away. But Lamin has committed a crime. We have to take him. Yeah. So when that happens, we stand our ground, but Lamin has to go in any way. In that process, our men have been wounded, some with very serious hospitalization wounds, and our officers are also from families. Yeah. They want to come to work and go home safe. So, but sometimes they don't have that because some communities are just still not very cooperative, and they are okay with people around them violating the law, and they want to shield them and protect them. But we understand. Everybody wants to protect your brother or sister. We understand. We don't antagonize them. We still work with them to make sure that they allow us to do what we are supposed to do, and we do what we are supposed to do.
Now, to the young people, what advice do you have for young people who may have tempt or pressure into drug use or peddling?
Stay away from drugs. That's number one. Yeah, they must not. We encourage them not to come, not to touch, not to even come close to drugs. Because we know young people. We've all been young at some time. We've all been curious, adventurous. Young people, they want to test, they want to explore. And if they are not lucky, they have a little peer pressure, they can aid towards drugs. But our message is, drugs are dangerous for them, and not good for them. If you look at every successful person in this world, if you look at, for example, politicians, if you look at successful businessmen, you can name examples. Hamid Hijab, if you look at, you can Halifa Sallah, politician, Hussein Dawa, for example, all these politicians, our independent hero, Jawara, all these successful politicians, all successful businessmen, all successful academics, if they tell you one thing that is constant, they never touch drugs. That's constant. So if anybody wants to follow their success, this part of business, part of politics, part of the academia, part of journalism, the Hydra, for example, if you look at all these great men and women of now and before, 9 out of 10, they will tell you some of them have never even seen drugs. Let's touch it. So let them stay away from drugs.
From wherever you're tuning from, this is Majak Radio 92.2 FM. On Bagao Newtown, at Bagao Newtown. Okay, and now we proceed. Anyone who wants to ask a question or contribute to the program, you can call on 750-1790, 750-1790, and please ask respectfully because we have a very, very important guest. But Director, we proceed from here. Meanwhile, we wait for any caller to call and contribute on the program. As we wrap up this final message, what will be your final message you would like to leave for the Gambian people?
My final message is that this country, the Gambia, belongs to all of us. We have an obligation. We are here today because somebody has done the right thing in the past. Yeah. If people had messed up in this country many years ago, perhaps we would not be here. So we can afford to. We have to hand over this country to a very, very vibrant youth population, to a hard-working group of youths who will continue the legacy. And in the midst of drugs, that is not possible. So my message to the Gambian people is for them to work not only with drugs, to work with law enforcement in general. Law enforcement in this country is here to serve the Gambian people.
DG, it seems like we have a caller. Good morning. Hello caller, where are you calling us from and what's your name? Ibrahim Boy from Lamin. Ibrahim Boy, you're live on Majak Radio 92.2 FM.
Thank you, Mullah. And I must comment that has been a very good program has been done and great insights from the director of Texas. So I just have it that I would direct to the director.
Respectfully, yes.
Go ahead.
And that is in the case of Rena Brown, a 26-year-old British national, who was arrested at the Bajindrasa airport with 60 packs of suspected skunk cannabis. How difficult life for the 50 packs to multiple international airports undetected and was intelligence to the Gambia identified and is now accessing to prevent similar trafficking attempts to the Gambia's main entry point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. He was Rena Brown,
Mhm.
case at the airport. He's asking, what are some of the measures and where are we as far as the case is concerned?
What's the case? Is it the lady?
The lady.
Oh,
yes.
the president.
The
Oh, yeah,
president,
yes.
yeah.
Did he say the substance was negative?
No.
Okay.
He didn't say that.
Oh, I know the lady is the British lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. She was arrested at the airport with skunk. Cannabis skunk, if I yeah. And it was the substance was tested and found to be positive skunk, and the lady was arraigned in court, and the case is progressing in court. It's also important for the caller and everybody to know that DLEAG doesn't we are not the only adjudicators of this. When we arrest people, we process them in our stations, we give them to our prosecutor. The prosecutor mentioned them at the courts, at our magistrate court of jurisdiction. Now it's the magistrate court that dictates the pace. DLEAG doesn't dictate the pace anymore.
Okay.
If the magistrate calls the case today, our prosecutor appears and the accused person appears. If the magistrate doesn't call the case, DLEAG cannot. Sometimes we appeal on the magistrate to expedite cases, and many magistrates, to be honest, have been doing exactly that, but that is not within our mandate to say the case must come up today, tomorrow, or after tomorrow. Coming to the airport, he mentioned we are working as a team at the airport, and we interdict as a joint force there. Sometimes it's only DLEAG, sometimes a whole lot of security infrastructure at the airport that support us in our interdiction.
Quite important. The ecstasy thing is one thing. The kush,
Yes.
the imagine of kush.
Yes,
Very
yeah.
serious one.
Yes, it didn't come through your questions. I'm going to end with that. The KUS, when I took over in July 2024, KUS was on a serious surge in this country. No disrespect to the past, it's not only Gambia, it was on rising in the sub-region. But I can say very authoritatively, within the first 4 months, by December 2024, the KUS interdiction and hospitalization started going down. Up till now, we don't know the hospital because I don't have the statistics from the hospital.
Yeah.
But at our end, KUS interdiction has reduced tremendously. And we even got a report in 1 or 2 hospitals that KUS hospitalization has gone down. So it's a success story on KUS so far, but we don't want to be complacent and think the game has been won. We want to step up, and we are stepping up, particularly in our borders, because we know the story of KUS is important in the sub-region. We make sure that our presence at the port of importation is expanded and is vigorous. That's why
We'll take another call at DG from here. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
You're welcome. You're live on Majak Radio.
Thank you. This is Mankajang Bakari.
Mankajang, you're welcome.
Yeah, only within Majak.
Okay, you're live. What's your question and your contribution?
Yeah, well, this is a great interview that my question is, I wanted to know the status of, previously there was a rumor, or there was a concern that was raised about the unborn drug cases that happened within the country. There was an allegation against drug law enforcement agency that during the boarding they could not burn some drugs. And it was said that there would be an investigation that would be going into this matter. So I just wanted to ask the director if it is something that what is the status of that investigation about the unborn drug?
Yes, thank you very much. I think you are right. During the DLEAG drug destruction exercise, this now is public knowledge. During the drug destruction exercise last year, November 2024, it was found out that some blocks of fake cocaine were not destroyed. So DLEAG itself flagged it out for investigation, which happened. An investigation was convened by our very able Ministry of Interior. Law enforcement entities were invited to investigate it.
Yeah.
It was investigated, and the opinion was sent to the AG. The report was sent to the AG chambers for opinion. The opinion came out a couple of months ago with recommendations. I'm not sure I remember all the recommendations, but the people who were found culpable in those cocaine cases have been brought to justice. One of them was a magistrate was mentioned to have taken part. That's also public knowledge. He's been arraigned. We don't know about the court case on that because that's not within our purview. So one or two few officers were also mentioned in the report. The opinion has come from the AG chambers and has been sent to the competent authorities to take action on the line of action, to take action on the line of recommendations that are proffered against those people.
Thank you so much, DJ. I hope, Bakari, your question has been answered. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking to Mr. Demba Sise, the Director General of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the Gambia, on the fight against drug peddling, policy reform, and the role of communities. Remember, drug destroys lives, families, and nations, but together we can stop them. I am your host, Modlamin Sane. Thank you for listening to the special interview on Majak Radio 92.2 FM. Well, listeners, that does it. Follow us on the social media platforms. That's all we have for you on this hour of the program.